Hi, Dave D here, and I want to introduce you to my good friend Shaun Buck from the Newsletter Pro, based out of Boise, Idaho. That's right, Boise, Idaho. Now, I first met Shaun 6 years ago, shortly after he started his company, and watched him grow his business to a 60-plus member team and become the nation's largest custom print newsletter company, printing and mailing millions of newsletters annually for diverse industries spread across 4 different countries. Now, Shaun's company, check this out, has grown so fast in 2015 that Shaun and the Newsletter Pro landed at number 120 on the Inc. 500 fastest growing company list with a shocking growth rate of 2,975%. And he made the list again in 2016 at spot number 343. You are in for a huge treat because what Shaun's going to share with you is, okay, you've generated a lead, right? Now you've sold the lead, now they become a client. Now what do you do with them to maximize their customer value, to increase referrals, or if for some reason they didn't convert, how to take those unconverted prospects and turn them into clients. Ladies and gentlemen, Shaun Buck.
Hey, thanks, Dave. All right, well, I'm excited to be here, and I'm going to go over, everything Dave talked about, but I want to go over some specifics here. So what are we going to cover? What actually are we going to go through? So we're going to talk about the secret to dominating your market, even if you have stiff competition. So I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of competition out there, especially in service businesses, whether you're a financial planner, you're a dentist, you're a lawyer, there's so much competition. So how do you rise above that competition? How do you get and stand out from the crowd? So you're just not, another provider. So you're not a commodity which is what it becomes, right? When there's a dentist on every corner, or a lawyer, or a financial provider, or a plumber, or whatever it is your business is, when they're on every corner, you just become a commodity. So how do we make you rise above that competition? How do we make you stand out? So we're going to talk about the single marketing tactic you need to massively increase the number of referrals you get. Now, we're not going to just talk about the tactic. I'm not going to just show you what it is that we use. What I'm going to go over is actual real-life case studies. So I'm going to show you what's worked for our clients, what we've done in the past, and kind of the success and the results that you can expect so that you have some examples of what you can mimic so you can do them yourself as well. And then I'm going to talk to you about our secret weapon for achieving massive business growth. So what is it that we've done to grow so fast? It's really not rocket science. It's very replicatable. But what is it that we've done? What have we done to grow so fast? How do we make Inc. Magazine's 500 fastest growing companies list 2 years in a row? And I'm going to show you that. I'm going to share those secrets with you. And so that's what we're going to cover today here. And let me tell you a little bit about me, and we'll just spend a couple of minutes here, but let me tell you a little about me. So I have a very unique story. I started out in life really young, and got kind of thrust into being an adult, right? So I get this phone call one day. I'm about 16 years old, and I get this phone call from my ex-girlfriend. Now listen, we had been broken up for a solid 2 months, right? So it was kind of weird that she was calling me, but she calls me up and she tells me this important news she has, and she tells me that she's pregnant. And I thought about that for a second, and then I asked her, I said, okay, congratulations, but why are you telling me? And she then dropped a bomb on me and said, well, that's because you're the dad, and so, this is your baby. And I did a little math and figured out that was likely possible, and then quickly came to the realization that I was going to be a dad, and I better figure out something other than working at Chuck E. Cheese. Because you see, I had a killer job at Chuck E. Cheese. I was making $4 an hour when I started and had just gotten a raise to $4.25 an hour. So I was absolutely crushing it. I mean, I was an amazing mouse. I danced. I put on great shows. It was awesome. But that wasn't going to pay for diapers, right? That wasn't going to quite cut it. So I needed to figure something else out. So I did what I thought would be natural. I actually went into the bookstore and I started to peruse business books. Now I couldn't buy very many of them because I didn't have any money. As you might imagine, $4.25 an hour just doesn't go very far. I had to put gas in the vehicle, it just doesn't go very far. And I went through and perused books. I would read some entire books in Barnes & Noble. But I did buy one by an author named Dan Kennedy, and that was one of the first books I bought, and I enjoyed it and devoured everything he had, plus a number of other marketing gurus, and to figure out, what should I do? How can I support this kid? So if I fast forward quite a bit and I look at today, my life's completely changed. So the big kid there in the middle, that is my son that I had, who's just about 21 years old and just got married last year. And I have 4 other boys, so I've got a total of 5 boys. I told my wife, I said, listen, honey, I'm sorry I couldn't give you a girl. I'm just all stud. I don't know what to tell you. And anyhow, so we ended up with all boys, and it's been a pretty crazy ride from a family standpoint. And all because I started super early. So I started, again at 16 years old, trying to figure this out, trying to figure out life and trying to figure out business. So what happens for most people, right, when they're in their 20s, they're trying to figure out what they want to do. And I did a little bit of the same thing. I went to college for a little while. And in college, I bought my first real business, right? And so my first real business was, you can see that picture up there with the big yellow banner. It says Woody's Hot Dogs. That was my first real business. So I had owned the little businesses, as a teenager, and even after I'd had my son. I was actually, one of my businesses after I had him was a pager company. Yes, believe it or not, a pager company. For those of you who don't know what pagers are, they're kind of like cell phones, only you can only just receive messages, like phone numbers, like call me here, 911. So if you're not old enough to know what a pager is, that's what it is. But I'd sell pagers and I'd sell subscriptions to the pagers to my friends. But my first real business was this hot dog stand. Now, interesting story on the hot dog stand. It's actually kind of, looking back, I'm not sure that it was the most appropriate thing, but it was called Woody's Hot Dogs. And right there on the menu board, we had the slogan for Woody's Hot Dogs. And it was, "It's the big one, baby. It's a Woody." And so that was on every menu board. It was right there. I owned a couple of these hot dog stands. And I quickly realized that I was living in Northern California at the time, and even in Northern California in the Bay Area, it is cold in the wintertime standing out in front of a hot dog stand. And so I quickly realized that that wasn't for me. And so where most people might switch jobs in their 20s, or they might jump from major to major, I went through businesses. And so that's kind of what I did. I owned the hot dog stands for 18 months, and I owned a Bev & Co. business for like 9 months, and the R-Town franchise for 2 years, and so on and so forth. And so I went through all these different businesses, trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to be, and trying to learn business. And so that was kind of what I did in my early 20s, is jump from business to business. And the bad news is that I didn't get very far doing that, right? It's really hard to have a lot of success when you're changing businesses every 18 months or 24 months or 36 months. But I did learn a ton. I learned a ton about sales and marketing and retention. And one of the things I learned very early on, and I learned this from the dry cleaning business, dry cleaning to your door, and then subsequently dry cleaning butler, I learned that it is not easy to get a new customer. It's actually really difficult to get a new customer. And so I learned that when I get them, I just want to keep them. I don't want them to ever leave, because it is so difficult. And you see, in that business, it was even more difficult, because the way we grew that business was door to door. We literally went out. I'd literally go out in the evening, starting at about 5:30 until about 8 or 8:30 at night, and I would knock on doors, and I would offer our pickup and delivery dry cleaning service. And that was how we sold it. And so it was so brutally difficult getting new customers that I was like, man, I've got to figure out ways to retain these guys, because I'm so tired of walking, 6 days a week, 3-4 hours a night, knocking on doors, all that rejection. I've got to get that. I've got to know how to retain these people. And so it became a major focus of my life. I was devouring everything I could come across on how to, of course, get customers, because we all want them, right? Or get leads, because we all want those, and then convert them to customers and follow up. I mean, that was all really important. But then once I had them, I wanted to do everything I could to keep them. I always felt it was cheaper just to take care of them, to make them happy, to give them a great experience, than it was for me to go out and try to get new ones to replace them. And so that was always my focus. So as Dave said, 6 years ago, a little over 6 years ago, I started the Newsletter Pro. And I started the Newsletter Pro because I wanted to focus on retention. I knew that newsletters worked for my dry cleaning business because I'd been using them for years. And I also knew that they were just a pain. They were a pain to do. And so I said, look, if this is this difficult for me, and I know how well it works, it's got to be difficult for everyone else. And so I'm going to start this company. And so that's exactly what we did. And this is a team photo actually on our our sixth anniversary, so there's 60 of us, a little over 60 of us now. And as Dave mentioned, we've been on Inc. Magazine's fastest growing companies list, the Inc. 500, 2 years in a row now. Best place to work in Idaho, which is probably the thing I would say I'm actually most proud of. And we've had a lot of success. And here's the thing, it's not rocket science. The success is so duplicatable. Okay, any of you guys watching can absolutely duplicate this success if that's what you want. If you want a version of it, if you only want to grow another $1 million or another $500,000, you can use it and you can start and stop. You can turn the success on and off depending on what it is that your goals are and what you're trying to achieve. So, I mentioned earlier that I had picked up a book from Dan Kennedy. And I mentioned that partially because it really became a full circle moment for me in my story. Okay, so just last year, I wrote a book with Dan Kennedy. And so we co-authored the No BS Guide to Maximum Referrals and Customer Retention. And so to go in at 16 years old, buy this guy's book and study him for years, and then to ultimately co-author a book with him was absolutely just, very full circle moment for me. I loved it, every moment of it. And so that was just kind of something cool that happened. Now, let me talk to you about what people think. When I start talking about retention, I start talking about referrals, but definitely about retention and attrition, they think it doesn't matter. Everyone thinks all they need is more leads. Let me just put more people in the top of the funnel, right? Let's not worry about converting them. Let's not worry about keeping the ones we've got. Let's not worry about getting more referrals. I just need more leads. And if you go talk to business owners, that's what you're going to find. You're going to find them, they're going to tell you that. Oh, yeah, my number one goal, get more leads. But here's the thing, I found this in my life, all throughout my life, that the masses are just about always wrong, okay? There's wisdom in doing the opposite of what the crowd is doing. There's so much wisdom when you look at where everyone else is going, and they're all going left. If you go right, your odds of success go up because everyone's going left. Every single one of my friends in 2011 was starting social media businesses, or they were starting website development companies, or whatever it was, they were all starting online ventures. They wanted to start a SaaS company. It didn't matter. That's what they were all doing. And they actually made fun of me for starting an offline print newsletter business. I was actually, they teased me about it for years until my company kept growing and growing, and we became bigger than they were. Right? And then bigger than all of them combined. And, they no longer tease me about it. Now they want to know the strategies, right? And so I found that in life. It served me well even when I was 16 years old, right? So when I was 16 years old, I had a decision to make. Was I going to be involved in my son's life, or was I not going to be involved? And the decision I made was actually to raise him. And so I got in there and I raised him and instead of his mom. And so that was the decision I made. And I found that throughout life, if I really go back and evaluate it, the times where everyone else is going left and I go right, or everyone's going right and I go left, is when I have the most success. So always look for those opportunities. All right, so let's talk about some of the secrets here. So some of our secret weapons for massive growth, okay? So long-term nurture and follow-up on leads. So it's really, really interesting. People get a lead, right? You get someone who comes in, they're interested, you generate them wherever it is. Direct mail, Facebook, it doesn't matter where you get them. You meet them at a referral event, right? Or a networking event. You get this lead, they don't buy instantly, and that's the end of it. You just drop it. Okay, it's crazy, it's crazy. And I'm gonna show you some facts here in a second that talk about how the buying cycle, how long it takes people to actually make a decision to buy, and why you're leaving so much money on the table, okay? So it's really important that you have a plan and you have a strategy for nurturing the lead, right? And then following up on them. So if you're not familiar with the term of nurturing the lead, they're not ready to buy today, so they need more information, okay? You need to give them facts, figures, stats. They just need to compare. They're in an early buying stage, right? So they're just doing their investigation at this point. Whatever it is, if you're the person staying in front of them, odds are you're going to be the person who sells them at the end. So in the car dealership, it's last up, right? So last touch. When you come in, the last dealership that they go to is the majority of the time the dealership they buy from. Right? So if they're searching, even if they liked that car 4 dealerships ago, It's the last one that typically gets the sale, right? It's the one that they're going to on their list last. And so they don't want you to ever leave, because the moment you leave, they realize that the odds that you are going to come back at that point is very, very small, okay? Because they have no ability to nurture and to follow up on you and to work with you. But you have these options, okay? You can absolutely do that. So you have to engage in the real world as well as the digital world. There was all this media out there that print is dead. In fact, you may even remember back in around 2011, 2010, 2011, 2012, there was this talk that books were going to go away. There weren't going to be any more physical books. It was all going to be Kindle books, right? It was all going to be ebooks. They were all going to disappear. The Kindle books were just taking off. And what's happened since then? What's happened is that the Kindle books have leveled out. They're roughly a third, 40% of the total book market. But physical books are still crazy, crazy popular. People still go to bookstores and buy them. People still order them on Amazon and have them shipped instead of getting them instantly through Kindle, okay? So you need to engage both online and offline. We're seeing this too, where online companies that are like retail type of companies are now sending print catalogs. Why would they do that? That seems crazy, right? It's because it still works. And you want to hit people in different ways, right? You don't want to only email. You don't want to only do LinkedIn. You don't want to only do Facebook, and you don't want to only do direct mail. You need to do all the strategies combined. It's so important to engage online and offline. So we look at it, the moment we get a lead offline, our goal is to get them online as fast as possible, right? And the moment we get an online lead, our goal is to take them offline as fast as possible, right? So if I meet you in the physical world, I want to figure out how to get you to like my Facebook page. I want to figure out how to get you to make sure I have your email address and that you opt into something so that I can continue to follow up with you, right? If I meet you in an online world, I want to figure out how I can get your address so I can mail you something, okay? So breaking that pattern, huge success if you'll marry those two, right? And then the last major secret is that customer retention has to be a major focus for your company. I just got back last week. I just got back from a meeting that I have with some CEOs, and it's a peer group that I go to. And the main guy who leads the meeting runs a $130 million a year company, a gigantic company. And you know what they're worried about? You know what they are talking about in this $130 million company? It's not how to get more leads. It's not how to grow faster. It's not even team member problems. One of their number one metrics, if not their top metric, is attrition. How many customers are they losing? And it's what I find big companies talk about, but us small guys, we don't focus on it at all. You know, right? We can't even get you the number. You go in and say, how many people used you 12 months ago and are not using you today? And people can't even find you the number. They can't even get it for you. Do you know what your number is? Could you give me that number right now? How many people are you leaving? Now, when you give me the number, what I find is that sometimes people give me the number and then the math doesn't add up. I sat with a guy maybe a month or two ago, and he got done telling me all of his growth, his amazing growth that he had. And then he gave me his attrition number. And when you did the math, it actually didn't work out. So don't just give me a number. If you do have a number, go back and do the math. Okay, we grew this much. Here's the attrition number. See if your number's correct. You know, double check your work there, because I find most people, they're not correct on their number. I can stump them in 2 or 3 questions and find out that the number is incorrect 9 out of 10 times. So we talked just a second ago at the point 1 where we talked about how long it takes people to buy, right? So Moen Faucets has this really cool thing that they do. It's called a Did You Buy survey. And they do this survey where they take a look at people who inquired. So these are people who requested more information from them. Could have been on their website, could have been someone who requested information maybe at a trade show, or wherever they see their customers, their potential customers at. And then they follow those leads and they try to find out, did they buy? Not did they buy from Moen, but did they buy in general? The results of their study, and they do this every single month. They continue to follow these leads. So they're still running these studies and they're getting updated data. But the results of these studies are amazing. Over 51% of people who requested information about Moen faucets or Moen's products in general make a purchase within 18 months. Now, it doesn't mean they make a purchase with Moen, but they make a purchase in 18 months. Think about that for a second. Think about the fact of all the leads you generate, of all the people who request information from you. If your numbers hold up anywhere close to Moen Fawcett's numbers, 51% of those are buyers. Are you converting 51% of them? So my guess is you're not. Most people aren't converting 51%. The best of people typically aren't converting 51% of leads, okay? But you've got to figure out how to get closer to that number. So maybe you're converting 10% of those leads right now. Well, if you're converting 10%, you know what your opportunity is. Your opportunity is 41% more. And if you will focus on that, you'll see a huge conversion. You'll see a huge increase in sales. And it's just one tactic. It's just one thing to do. Now, only 15% of people who request information from Moen make a purchase within the first 90 days. Think about that for a second. How many people request information from you that you're still following up with after 90 days? Now, I don't mean you're sending them an email because they're on your mass email list. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean a lead you're actively working. How many people are you still going after 90 days from now? If you're honest, and if you're anything like most businesses, the answer is 0. Yeah, they're getting emails from you, sure. But are they getting anything in the mail? When was the last time they got a phone call? Right? They're not getting anything. They're getting just the bucket of emails that you send out to everybody. But only 15% of people make a purchase within the first 90 days. That means 85% of people and 85% of your future buyers are 90 days out from the initial inquiry. Now, the bigger your product that you're selling, the more true this even becomes, and the larger that number becomes. So think about it. If I am investing with you, right? Yes, of course, there are people who walk in, meet you, and decide to invest right away. Here's $1 million. Please manage my money well. But there's a lot more people who want to take some time before they cut that check. Same thing in dental, right? So if you're a dentist and you're here and you quote Invisalign and they decide not to buy, there may be a lot of reasons that they've decided not to buy. They may have nothing to do with them not being interested. They may be saving up money for cash. They may have another expense that they've got to get through before they can take on the payment. You know, there's a lot of different reasons that people make decisions not to buy. It is very, very easy to do nothing, right? That is such an easy decision to make. And so you have to be there. You have to be in front of them. You have to continue to communicate with these prospects until they're ready to buy. A friend of mine says that you follow up until they buy or they die. Now, that might be a little bit harsh for me, but you definitely need to follow up. Personally, we follow up for 24 months. That's what my company follows up for, 24 months. Now, of course, the longer it is with no contact, the less the follow-up, right? But we go 24 months. So let me give you some inside baseball numbers. And we've worked hard on these numbers, okay? We've worked hard to make these numbers better than they were when we first started. But let me talk to you about last year because it's the most current numbers. So 35% of our new business converted in 0 to 30 days. The interesting fact about that is that that's where most people stop, right? So people found us and then bought within the first 30 days. 35% of our new business came in that way. It's really not that much in the grand scheme of all of our new business, right? In the grand scheme of growing as fast as we grew. 29% came in 31 to 90 days. So where most people have given up because they haven't gotten a yes within 30 days, we continued to push. And over 31 to 90 days, we nearly doubled the number of new customers we had, 29%. Now, this next stat, this is where we actually put a ton of effort because originally this 91 to 365 day stat, these numbers were like flipped. You know, we were getting roughly 7% of our customers were coming in the 31 to 90 day and then 29% in 91 to 365 days. So we worked really, really hard on this to bring that number up. And now 7% of our new customers come into that time frame. But here's the interesting number. 29% of our new customers convert 366 days plus. Nearly a third of our business last year came in. Now you might say, Shaun, 29%, that's not that exciting. In fact, I had someone tell me that just yesterday. That's not an exciting number. Well, you're right. That may not be a super exciting number. But here's the thing. That was just under $2 million in new revenue for us. So 29% may or may not be exciting. $1.8 million, very exciting. So if you think about that though, if you add these up, most people are stopping in that 0 to 30 day. Really, really good people are working 31 to 90 days on their leads. Very few people, and your competitors surely are not working 91 to 365 days. But that, for us, again, and this is something we've worked hard on, is 36% of our revenue, new revenue last year. Spoke with a gentleman 2 months ago. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. 49% of their business is coming in 366 days or longer. Now, there's ways to push that number up. 49% is too high, okay? But think about it. If he was doing nothing and wasn't following up on them, where would he be? His business would literally be half of what it is today. So let me ask you this. Where could your business be if you were following up on these leads? Where could it be if you were getting an extra 29%, 7%, and 29%? You know, I think it could be a lot bigger than it is today. If that's what you want, this is what you have to do. So again, we talked earlier, the masses are always wrong. So here's a quote for you. Print isn't dead. Media is so fast now, so dynamic, and so temporary. Print is my only chance at actually making someone stop. Now you might think, you know, that probably came from a guy who loves print, like he lives in the print world, right? No, that came from Omar, the CMO of Beats by Dr. Dre, a company owned by Apple. So this massive company owned by Apple feels that print is their only chance to actually make someone stop. Now, does that mean they don't do digital? They don't do online? No, that's crazy talk. Of course they do. Of course they do. It'd be crazy for you not to do that. But it doesn't mean they exclude it, right? They don't exclude this media, the print media. So many small businesses do, though. So let's talk about Sony, huge company, right? Let's talk about why print works for them. So print, for Sony, their goal was to increase repeat sales. That's what they wanted. And they wanted a goal of 20% of their customers to buy another product. So they decided to develop a campaign. Now this campaign here, aim was to just get you to buy something else. So you bought a Sony PlayStation, well, you may need a new big screen TV, right? You bought a big screen TV, you may need a Blu-ray DVD player. So what they would do is they would match what you bought with what other people typically buy with those products, right? So they would see, okay, we know people who buy PlayStations sometimes also buy big screen TVs, so we're going to send an offer to you, and we're going to offer you a big screen TV, and we're offering you a great deal on it. And so that was their strategy. Now they did both an online and an offline campaign, and here's what they found. By the end of this campaign, Sony had a 145% increase in repeat sales. So they wanted 20%, they ended up with 145%. That's how well this campaign worked. So they absolutely blew it out the water. I would kill for 145% when I was shooting for 20%, right? Here's an interesting number. The revenue per 1,000 pieces mailed was 4 times that of the email campaign. So they got more revenue off the direct mail campaign. Now, does that mean that the direct mail works better than email? Not necessarily. Here's the thing, it all works together. The email supports the direct mail campaign. The direct mail campaign supports the email campaign. Yeah, when you're tracking it, you see that the direct mail in this instance maybe did better. But in other tracking, I could probably show you studies that show that the email did better. But what I'm here to tell you is I've also seen it time and time again. You do just direct mail, you just do one, it doesn't work as well as doing both. You just do email, it doesn't work as well as doing both, right? So they had such a crazy great success because they combined online and offline. They didn't do them separately. All right, so step number 1 to getting more referrals. This may sound obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't get this. And to better retention, so we're covering 2 things. Your clients, your patients, your customers, and your referral sources need to know who you are, what you do, and that you're still in business. You would think that that's a given, right? You would think they know that. I'm telling you right now, that is not a given. That's not a given by any extent of the imagination. Some of them can't even get your name right. Some of them don't remember everything that you do. You can't tell them once when you first meet them and think that they're going to know your laundry list of products and services. Of course they don't. You don't. Think about anyone you do business with. That's not the case. What about that plumber you used 6 months ago? Or the electrician? Can you tell me about that new dentist? Or ortho guy? Or lawyer that settled your case? Can you give me the exact name of their law firm? No, you can't. See, my buddy Shane found this out. He could not figure out what was going on in his business. He had a crazy successful law practice, and he wasn't getting any referrals. It wasn't because they weren't telling him how happy they were with him. They were telling him that they loved him. They were so happy picking up their check when he settled their claim with the insurance company. He was getting all sorts of glowing reviews, but no referrals. So Shane decided, well, listen, I got to figure this out. And so he pulled a list of customers who had been greater than 6 months since they had settled their claim, regardless of dollar amount. And he started making phone calls. You know what Shane found? Shane found that they didn't even know who he was. They could not remember his name. He said, I'd never been hung up on more. I've never been told I'm not on the do not call list more in my entire life. They had no idea who he was. Why? They'd settled the case already. They'd moved on in their life. We're being bombarded with so much information right now that we just can't remember this guy from 6 months ago. It's not that he's not a nice guy. He's a great guy, good friend of mine. But it's very, very difficult to remember every single person we interact with, every single company we do business with, unless they work to stay in front of us, unless they work to add value into our lives on a regular basis, not just, you got me a check for $22,000 6 months ago. That's not enough. You might think it should be, but it is absolutely not enough. Now, the reason you should focus on referrals, the reason that you need to make sure that you're paying attention to these referrals is that referred customers are 4 times more likely to buy when they're referred by a friend. 4 times. That makes converting them a lot easier. The lifetime value of a referred customer is 16% higher than non-referred customer. That's huge. And a referred customer is 18% more loyal than a customer acquired through a different method, which means they're going to stay longer. Their lifetime value, how long they're doing business with you is going to be even better. And I'll tell you this, what we found is people who refer tend to also be better customers. They tend to stay longer. So the referee, right, they tend to be better customers as well. And so you really have this huge benefit in your business by getting more referrals. So let's talk about Dr. Brown. So Dr. Brown has some amazing stuff he's doing with referrals, and let's look at some of what he's doing. I'll go through a little case study with you. His latest one, they just did the drawing yesterday. So I mean, it's super current stuff. So we've been doing referral stuff with Dr. Brown for years at this point. These are 2 of the more recent ones that he's done. They were done last year. One was to win 2 nights at Shore Lodge, which is a resort town 100 miles from where he's at, and the other was to win tickets to see Maroon 5, which was a super popular concert for the area he was in, and everyone wanted to do those things. Now, he actually ran these contests at the same time, which is a really interesting strategy, running 2 contests at the same time. But the Shore Lodge one was ran over months, and then the Maroon 5 one was a monthly drawing as well. So they got entered into a contest that ran for 6 months, and then they got entered into a new contest every single month. So Maroon 5 one month, a Yeti cooler with some camping supplies another month, whatever it happens to be for the offer. And he did great on these, generating literally hundreds of referrals over the 6-month period with the Shore Lodge one. And now listen, this was about $1,000, but that's not actually the interesting one. That's not the one I really want to cover, because I finally talked him into doing a crazy one, right? At least he thought it was crazy. I thought it was perfectly normal, but he thought it was absolutely crazy. This one is the one that just ended. It's a Disney World referral giveaway. So what he was giving away was a trip for 4 to Disney World. I mean, which I feel is like an amazing prize. So he ran it from July 6th to February 6th, and then did the drawing, like I said, yesterday. So it's this amazing prize. And so we took a look at what the results were. He averaged 48 new referrals per month over the course of the 7 months that he ran this contest. 48. He was getting somewhere between 10 and 20 new referrals a month without the contest. So when he does nothing, he ends up with 10 to 20 new referrals. And when he ran this contest, he ended up with 48. So that's cool, right? But how did he do it? That's really what we need to know. We need to know how he actually did that. So let's talk about that for a second. He had basically a 3-part strategy. The first part was he did a ton of in-office promotion. So that meant when you walked in, there were signs. There were signs. Literally, he'd have like an easel type of thing. He'd have a sign sitting there. He had posters on the wall. They were in every single op. They were on the screensavers on everyone's computer. So when you were walking through, you could see this. Okay, it was absolutely everywhere in the office. So he promoted it in office. The next thing he did, and this is where most people miss it, and this is so key right here, is that he incentivized his team as well. So here he is getting ready to spend all this money on this, and he says, listen, I need the team behind it to push it, right? I can do all the promo, but if I can get the team, if I can get the hygienist to mention it to the patients as well, we'll do even better. And so he did exactly that. Every referral they got $5 and an entry to win their own contest. Now, their contest didn't include a trip to Disney. It actually included the Shore Lodge trip. So they got a Shore Lodge trip for 2 nights, okay, if they won the drawing. So it was someone on the team. And it was completely separate from this. But the Disney one here, the Disney one that they went after, they got $5, immediate gratification, right? And then they got entered into the contest. He said there actually became a little bit of a competition with them, right? Oh, hey, I just got 2 more entries. What about you? So the ladies and the gentlemen there started egging each other on to see who could be the best at it. And then he promoted it inside of his newsletter. So every single month there would be this kind of a promotion. Something here talking about it. We might have an article about it. We might have an insert about it. We might just have it printed in there saying, don't forget, refer your friends. We might thank them for the referrals, for the people who did refer, right? Every single month we promoted it through his owned media. This is media he controlled, right? So he could do whatever he wanted with it. And we're going to talk about that in a second. So by doing that, let me back up here. By doing that, what we actually found was that by doing all 3 things together, we saw an increase in the response. We even saw an increase from what we got off of the Shore Lodge, because we were only getting between 28 and I think 32 was the number we were getting there. So we saw a greater increase, and it wasn't that much more expensive. It was an amazing prize that families literally dream of going to. They dream of going to Disney World, right? And getting to take their kids. And yes, this was a couple $1,000s. I think the final price came out to $3,300 for 4 airline tickets, 4 tickets to Disney, and the hotel. But what was it worth? It was worth 48 new referrals a month. When we just look at the cost of the trip and the money given to his team member, he was at like $12 per new patient. It was an amazing cost, right? Even when we add in a percentage of the media for sending out his newsletter, and we take even if we put in 25%, he was still under $20 per new referred customer. It was crazy. The numbers were crazy. If you're not familiar with this industry, they'll cheerfully write you a check for $200 for a new patient. So to get them for $10 or $20 or $25 or $50, they're thrilled, right? I mean, how many customers would you like to have at $20 a customer? I'll tell you, I'll buy as many as someone can provide me for $20 a customer. Happily every day. So one of the keys to this was owned media. This is not a concept that most people get and understand, but let me go through this with you because it's so important, right? So you have to have your own media because it gives you the ability to communicate on your terms. So you now have something that you can put out there, okay? You can put your message out there, you can get it out there, and you can talk to your customers, to your prospects. You can do different messages to customers than to prospects, right? So when you own media, we've all heard the idea that the money's in the list. Very similar with owned media. By having your own media, you have control, okay? You can, done correctly, and I'm gonna show you how to do this correctly, you can increase the relationships, right? So you can increase relationships you have with your customers. We just heard Dave talk about earlier that people buy from people that they know and they like, or people buy from people who they feel comfortable with at a minimum, right? The Southerner has a hard time selling to the guy from New York, okay? We just heard him talk about that. But the thing is the better the relationship, the easier the sale. It's just so much easier. So you'll end up with more customers by building relationships. You'll end up with customers who stay with you longer by building relationships, okay? People who you like, you're more inclined to refer. So you end up with more referrals. So building that relationship through your own media, you end up with more referrals. People stay longer, so you got an increased lifetime value. It shows you as an authority when you're being published. Anytime you're being published, that makes you an authority, right? And as I mentioned, you control it. There's another aspect of this which isn't on here and is a more advanced term, but you also are creating your own monopoly money, right? So you're creating something you can use to barter if you'd like to allow someone else to have access to your customers, right? So you're creating monopoly money that you can use as trade. Hey, I'll give you an article here in my media if you give me XYZ in your media. So it's a little more of an advanced strategy, but absolutely it gives you all of these benefits. So our preferred media for owned media is a print newsletter. And this is an example of our print newsletter. And we send out an 8-page one, although most people, 4 pages is more than enough. We send out an 8-page one. And we do ours from a marketing standpoint, right? We're trying to give you marketing lessons. We're trying to talk to you about what's working, what's not working, mistakes we made so that you don't have to make them. You know, whatever it is, that's who our customers, and so that's what we're talking to them about. Now, there's a lot of mistakes people make when they're doing their own media, okay, and especially when they're doing a newsletter. And so I want to talk about those 3 mistakes, and then I'm going to jump in how to do it. So how to do it correctly. I'm going to walk you through it. The first mistake they make is only sending an email newsletter. Now, yes, email is cheap. It is, you could even argue it is free. But when you only send an email newsletter, you do run into some challenges. One, you have deliverability issues. Kim, who was on earlier, told me that what's working really well in emails right now is 8-word emails. Very difficult to send a newsletter out with only 8 words in it. Hard to build a relationship there, but that seems to be what's getting the best response at this point, right? The average person, adult in America, gets 147 emails a day. That is a lot of clutter to get through. That's a lot of other people who need to get through it. And now you've got to contend with Google and Outlook and other services having promotions where they have a promotions tab that your emails automatically go in and very few people see. Not to mention, how many of you guys have an email address that you give out just for when a business wants your email address? I have one. In fact, I have more than one. But I have one primary one, and it's an old Yahoo address that I've been using for years. And I usually log in about once a month just to make sure it stays active. I very rarely look at anything in there. It better be the thing at the top of the inbox, and it better have an amazing headline for it to catch my attention, or I better be absolutely bored out of my mind. So that's the only reason I go there. But this is what people want to do. They want to get cheap on it. They only want to send via email. Now, if you think that you can really build the relationship just via email and that's it, then I encourage you, for your wife or your husband, the next time it's their birthday, to simply just send them an email and say happy birthday. And then come home that evening and don't mention it. And let's just then send me a message and tell me how that went. I'll take an email or a card. Like, you know, you can send me something physically if you want, but I'd like to know how that went. Because I have a feeling that may be challenging, and it may be a very, very lonely night in your house that evening. So another mistake I see people make is frequency, right? They want to communicate quarterly. They want to communicate every other month. Here's the thing. No real relationship's built without frequent communication. So no deep, good relationship. Again, you got to remind them who you are, what you do, that you're still in business. You have to talk with them on a monthly basis. We send out millions of newsletters, and we cannot get quarterly to work. We've tested and we've tested and we've tested, and we just do not get the same response under a quarterly. So if you're doing that, it just doesn't work. You're doing it to do it at that point. Now here's mistake number 3, and I'll go more in depth on this in a second. Not opening up and getting personal in the newsletter. So I've learned all of this because, not only because we send out millions of newsletters, but I've learned all this because we've made these mistakes. When I first owned that dry cleaning business that I told you about, I made these mistakes. In fact, this is my very first newsletter. It's the very first one I ever sent out. Now, I don't know that you can read all of that, but I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of glimpse into the genius of this newsletter. First of all, as you can see, I was obviously a graphic designer in another lifetime because it is beautifully designed. But look at the topics. The head topic, the number 1 topic, is deodorant residue. I mean, if there just couldn't be a better headline than deodorant residue, right? I don't think it gets any better. That is just riveting. That makes you want to open this bad boy up and read every single word out of it. But that's it. That's the number 1 thing I led with, was deodorant residue, with some information about that. Because when you're a dry cleaner, you assume that everyone wants to know about dry cleaning. But here's the thing. No one cares. They don't want to know about your business. If they wanted to know how to be a dentist, they'd be a dentist, or a financial advisor, they'd be a financial advisor. That's what they would do. All right? Now, topic 2 was not quite as good as deodorant residue, but it was the secrets to removing grass stains. Amazing stuff. See, this newsletter actually did have one really, really good side benefit that a lot of people, they overlooked it at first. But I keep one by my nightstand. I keep one by my nightstand right now. And if I ever have a bout of insomnia, I go to this bad boy. I read this thing and I'm out. I'm out like that. And so it's one of these things where it is absolutely so boring. Why would anyone ever read it? It's not personal. No one cares. I was their dry cleaner at the time. You know what they wanted me to do? They wanted me to get out the deodorant residue, and they wanted me to get out the grass stains. If you're a dentist, they don't want to see mouthfuls of nasty teeth. Hey, look at these crazy rotting teeth, and we fixed them. Like, no one wants to look at that. That's crazy talk, okay? What they want is they want to know about you. They want to know about the practice. They want to know about the cool things you're doing. So let's look at what does work. Well, yeah, so epic fail, right? So I'm not saying Star Wars Episode 1 was an epic fail. I don't know how that image got in there, but my newsletter, absolutely epic fail. So it's possible that movie wasn't very good either, but well, So here's the thing. If you want to do it correctly, this is how it needs to go. This is the layout, and I'm going to walk you through it. And we go through, a version of this with customers, right? So you need to come up with 5 topics at a minimum that you can open up about, that you can talk about in this newsletter, right? So this could be your family. So for me, I might tell the story. Look, I got 5 boys. And I got one boy, he just turned 11. He is like crazy entrepreneurial, right? So entrepreneurial. He's probably going to, whatever I accomplish in life, my guess is he's going to double it easily, okay? He is out there, we're in Boise, Idaho, so he's out there snow shoveling in the winter, goes out one day for a couple hours, a couple weeks ago, comes back with $150. I mean, and so I'll tell his adventures. He has no fear. He's only allowed to knock on our street. That's it, just our street. And he can't even go all the way down to the end of the street because we live on a court, so we let him go onto the main street. But he can only go down, it's maybe 20 houses. And he hits these people up for snow shoveling. Can I wash your car? Can I pet sit for you? I mean, everything. The same houses, just sits there and hits them up all year long. My neighbors probably hate me, but he goes out there, he does it, and he has no fear, and he absolutely crushes it. And obviously they keep hiring him, so they enjoy the service. But I talk about his stories. I will tell his stories. I'll tell some of my own entrepreneurial stories, or my life experiences, or times where I failed. Sometimes being vulnerable is really, very beneficial. I mean, I gotta be honest, I failed so many times in life. Look at how many businesses I had to go through just to find one that I was like decent at, right? Okay, I mean, we all fail, so being vulnerable, opening up. If appropriate, talk about your family vacations, your holidays. Where are you going? What's cool? What are you excited about? Or lessons learned in business. Now this works whether you go to a B2B crowd, a B2C crowd, whether you're marketing to affluent people. Listen, I market to business owners who have $1 million to $100 million businesses. That's my market. So this stuff works regardless of where they're at, because people are people, and we all think everyone else's life is more interesting, right? We all think that what we do is boring and the next guy's a little bit better. And so open up, build that relationship. You'll be amazed at where people connect. I have a lot of people connect with me because I have 5 kids. And so they have a large family. Maybe, maybe they have 5 girls. Dr. Brown, one of our connections is that he has 5 girls. And so that was a place where we connected early on. And even he even joked, oh, maybe one of these days one of my girls will marry one of your boys. Well, look, that's a great point for us to connect in on, right? I have some people who talk to me and they'll be like, I have 8 kids, I have 4 kids, whatever it is, wherever they connect. But people will make connections with your story. And by building those relationships, what do you think it does? When they have a problem, do you think they're like, oh my goodness, forget this guy, I'm just gonna go find a new provider? Or do you think they call you when they have a connection with you? Of course they call you. It's a no-brainer, right? They give you a shot. They give you opportunities. Do you think that every coupon that comes in mail, they're ready to jump ship when they have a connection with you? No. So that's what you put on the front page. It's not deodorant residue. It's not the coolest and latest thing you do. It's not talking about taxes. There's places for that in the newsletter. It's not the front page, not the deodorant residue. There's no place for that in a newsletter. But, other things, taxes, there's probably places for that in the right business. So here's some examples, right? Forever in our hearts, And talking about the legacy here, right? This person's legacy. Here's another one. Turkey pie and lifelong values. And they're talking about their traditions for Thanksgiving. There you go. You want to connect with someone? Share your traditions with them. Talk about your kids. This is where, talk about your grandkids. This is where people make that personal connection and have that relationship. So let's talk about page 2 here, right? So usually it's divided up into 2 sections. And you don't have to divide it up as you see it on this page. There's a lot of ways to graphic design this, right? But you got a top of page 2 article. So this article, typically it's not about your product or service. It's what's going to help your ideal client. So one it's been really popular that we wrote recently for financial advisors was the 7 money tips to teach your grandkids. Well, great. If your target market is like, 55 to 85 years old, that's a perfect article for right here. Of course, put that in there. Add value to your customers' lives. Add value to your prospects' lives. That will increase and deepen the relationship that you're building with them. This is another perfect spot here, though, if you want to talk about a product. So the bottom of page 2, your referral contest, product, employee bio, whatever it is, go here. Talk about that new investment they have. Talk about Invisalign here. Talk about your legal services. I'll tell you a funny little side story. We had a gentleman who just recently signed up. He's a lawyer, and he tells me this story. I was like, well, what made you decide to do this now? And he says, well, a couple months ago, I was going out to have dinner, and I was with my family, and I saw a guy he was a client. I'd helped him out before. And we have 2 areas of law that we practice in. One is kind of minor criminal law, and the other is personal injury. And he goes, so I'm out there, and I see this guy, and he is celebrating. He's like, there's like 30 people around. I mean, it is just this crazy party going on. And he obviously had something amazing happen, and we've done some business together, so I walk up to say hi. And he goes, so I walk up to him, and I say, Jim, how's everything going? What's going on? What's going on here? What do you got going on? And Jim goes, you'll never believe it. I got hurt, and I got in this accident, and the verdict just came down. We just finished the case. $5 million verdict came down. He's like, I'm celebrating. I'm a millionaire, baby. I'm a millionaire. And the lawyer goes, Jim, why didn't you call me? I mean, we've helped you out of these other minor criminal things, the DUI, things like that, but why didn't you call me? And he goes, well, what do you mean? Jim says, what do you mean? And he goes, didn't you know we do PI? Jim goes, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I had no clue. I thought all you did was criminal. I didn't realize you did PI. Well, maybe if he had a newsletter at that point and had talked about all of his services in the newsletter, maybe even right here, that verdict could have come his way. And here's the thing. That's not the first time I've been told a story like that. That may be the largest one I've been told, but I've heard other ones. That was probably a $1.6 million fee that would have come to the law firm. Okay? So important for you to talk about what's going on in your business, for you to talk about those products, to highlight other things that you do, because they're using one of maybe 10 things they can use from you or 3 things they can use for you. And if they don't know what else it is you do, there's no way for them to buy them. Okay, so this is a perfect spot for that. Let me give you some examples here. So here you go. You got someone talking about their VIP referral program and the real way to boost brain power, right? And hacker hoax, the truth about internet's favorite life hacks. And here's a referral contest one, and you're showing the winner from the previous month and the new contest and a new patient special and a QR code and all these great things that they're doing, right? That's what goes there. So let's jump to page 3. You've got, now page 3, you can be a little bit more creative. You can do about your business. You can do like a testimonial, so talk about a success story with one of your clients, right? Or you can educate. So you got a couple of options there on page 3. A lot of times in the bottom, we like to have some fun. Book review, recipe, quick tip, life hack, testimonial, meme, funny joke, Sudoku stories, trivia, whatever it is, something along those lines, some entertainment factor. People love to be entertained, right? We're all looking for entertainment. So here's some examples of that, right? So you've got someone who has a crossword puzzle. They've got, looks like maybe a recipe there, fitness tips. You got another person who has recipe. Now, here's an interesting thing. I have a lot of people tell me, Shaun, I don't want any recipes. I feel like that's 1985. The funny thing about that is you know what the #1 best-selling book in bookstores is? Cookbooks. It's the #1 best-selling book in bookstores. And so if you think people don't want recipes, crazy. I'll give you though a tip if you're going to do a recipe. There's a reason we put it down at the bottom like this. So we put it down at the bottom like this because in the footer, you should have your phone number and your website address. So when they cut out the recipe, they've always got your website address and your phone number there. So every time they're looking at it, they're seeing your name, even if it's subconscious. They're seeing your name. They're thinking about you. Right? So really, really important that you put it at the bottom and you make sure your website, phone number are right there, at a minimum your website, right? So that when they cut it out, they get that. So just a little tip on there. Okay, so this is another design element here. You can see this. Now, here's the thing. You can see the layout and how they did it, so you don't have to do it all boxy and square. And you see how they did the gentleman in the middle. Now, I gotta tell you the truth here. I gotta fess up on something. I put this one in there. Because I was just very honored. I was very honored that my team used my body and put that model's head on it. I felt so proud that I was really trying to show off. So I mean, this is a good design one, and I don't want to take away from the design, but obviously that's me and my body up there. And so I like to thank them whenever I get a chance. And so, all right, seriously, let's get back. I'll be serious. So, all right, page 4. This is the second most important page of the entire newsletter. So page 1 is your most important page, right? That personal article, so important. But page 4, it's the second most important because when they get it in the mail, this is what they're going to see. They're going to see page 4. They're going to see this. And so you want to have something that entertains them or is local or is helpful to your target audience, to your demographic. That's what you want at the bottom of page 4. At the top, you want this inside this issue here, right? Really important section, but this is where your address section is going to go. This is where the inside this issue, this is where your headlines are going to go. That's what you want at the top of this. And so when you put that there, if you leave that out, they don't know what to expect. And so you want to give them little teasers. What are they going to find? What are they going to find inside this newsletter? And so really important to have that inside this issue. Don't leave that out. And then, of course, have your logo and phone number and website and return address and postage and all that great stuff. Let's look at some examples here. So right here, here's an example of one, and you can see, let's talk about love and finances, and so they've got the inside this issue, right? And then they've got a local piece, a travel piece. And then we've got another one here. And you can see, you can change it so that it matches your branding, it matches your colors, and it's geared towards your demographic, okay? But you want to make sure it has these elements in there. So now a lot of people ask, how do I sell in this, Shaun? How do I convert prospects to customers? How do I upsell new customers? So there's a lot of different ways, but one of the best, and the way I personally do it in my newsletter, is right here with an FSI. So we call them, they're freestanding inserts, we call them FSIs. You can do a front and a back like this. But what we're going to do in this is where we make offers. So it's a loose piece of paper that goes into the middle of the newsletter, and this is how we make offers. And I do different offers for different segments of my list. Prospects are going to get a prospect offer, and customers may get no offer or they may get a customer offer, right? So we segment it out. And this is how we make sales pitches in the newsletter. We never go directly in the newsletter. Now, there may be some covert stuff, right, where there's a testimonial in there or a success story in there, right? But we don't go overt personally in the newsletter, and we don't recommend it. You should sell in these FSIs, and they're really inexpensive to add in because you're already paying for the postage. So you really just have the cost of printing a front and back and inserting it. So it's very, very cheap to do, and it's a great way to sell, and then a great way to segment offers. And so that's exactly how we do it, and what I would recommend that anyone doing a newsletter like this does. So here's the thing. You've really got a couple of choices here. You've got two paths you can go, in fact. You need to make sure that you're incorporating direct mail. You need to make sure that you're incorporating your own media, and then you've just got to decide. Are you going to do it yourself, or are you going to hire someone to do it for you, right? Are you going to take the time and energy and put it in there, or are you going to allow the experts to take it over and just make it simple and done for you? And so if you're going to do it yourself, this is what needs to happen. There's 17 steps at a minimum that you need to do, okay? You've got to decide what to write about. You've got to research topics. You've got to write articles. You got to have those articles edited. Do not put them in there without being edited. You will get people, like you'll get Nazi police who will, or grammar police, I should say, who will send you, your stuff all marked up, and I can tell you early on we had that challenge, like before we had official editors on. That was not easy. So don't do that. It's not good. You've got to find pictures. Now here's a key on finding pictures. Do not go to Google Images and take them. Don't do them. I promise you, you will get letters in the mail. They will hold you ransom for like $700 for a single picture if you take the wrong picture, and possibly even more. So that is technically illegal. So you're going to need to subscribe to a service to get the royalty-free images, right? You need to edit those pictures to fit the design the newsletter, place the articles and the pictures, get your mailing list, clean your mailing list. Your mailing list, according to the post office, has to be cleaned every 91 days at a minimum. We do it every time you mail, but the minimum is every 91 days. So you need to make sure that you're doing that, or you'll be outside of postal regulations and could be fined. Those postal inspectors are very scary people. You need to get the newsletter printed, folded, tabbed. That's not as easy to do. It's specialized equipment to get it folded and tabbed the right way. They want to try to tri-fold it. That is wrong. Don't let them do that. You need to buy the postage, stamp each and every one of them, take it to the post office, and then start all over, because this is a monthly project, right? So that's the minimum. But if you want to do it yourself, you absolutely can. It's just difficult. And in fact, Joe here found that out. He said, I have tried publishing my own newsletter, but failed to manage my time and make it happen timely. Your full service program, talking about us, the Newsletter Pro, works for us, and I can still contribute what I have time for. And so our service is just completely done for you. We take care of it for you, from interviewing you on a 15-minute phone call to ghostwriting your content, to doing the graphic design, the layout, the printing, and mailing. Now, I'm not here to sell you newsletters because it is just very, very difficult. Every situation is different. What I'm here to tell you is that what we can do is figure out whether a newsletter is right for you, whether owning this media is correct for you. See, this customer found that it was, because what they found is that they track their marketing from year to year, print, media, radio, everything. And it was interesting was that they saw a 27% increase in referrals from 2014 to 2015 without any additional referral campaigns except their newsletter. So they weren't even running, these guys weren't even running contests. They were just sending the newsletter and getting a 27% increase. So keeping in touch, educating your great clients brings in more great clients, and we all know that referrals are the best new clients. And so without even doing some of the stuff we talked about today, without doing what, say, Dr. Brown was doing, they saw a 27% increase. And so you've got to decide that, are you going to do it yourself? Or do you want help executing this? So for us, because like I said, it is complicated. It is not one of these things where everyone is completely cookie cutter. We need to find out what your demographic is. What type of information does your demographic want to read? What's going to be best? What are your goals with the newsletter? What do you want to accomplish? Are you looking for more referrals? Are you looking to increase your retention and lifetime value? Are you looking to upsell or close more prospects? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then we work with you to create a strategy. And so because of that, we get on a strategy session. So we get on a call and we go over step by step what should go in your newsletter to achieve your goals. You walk through with a member of my team, and we're gonna walk you through it, and we're gonna talk about it. Now, these strategy sessions are complimentary. There's no cost for them. All you have to do is actually schedule one, and you'll see that there's a button there that says Get More Referrals Now. And if you click on that button, it will take you to a schedule page where you can schedule with a member of my team, and they're gonna go over what's gonna work for your business. They're gonna talk about your strategies, your goals, what it is that you wanna accomplish, and then what kind of content mix needs to happen to make that happen. They're gonna go over, how big is your list? Well, what is really the right size list? How far back should you pull data, right? Should you be going back to people who haven't used you for 2 years? Maybe not, maybe you should. Depends on your business. They're gonna walk you through all of this in this strategy call. And all you have to do is click the button in the blue box there, schedule an appointment, they'll jump on a call with you, and they'll take you through it. And we'll find out whether this is a fit for you and whether we're a fit to work together or not. You're also welcome to give us a call. Our number is 208-297-5700, or go to thenewsletterpro.com/schedule. So there's 3 ways to grab us, but the easiest way is just to click the blue button in the middle, Get More Referrals Now, or the blue button that would be on your page, Get More Referrals Now, and get on a strategy call, and we'll see what we can do and find out if there's a good fit there for us to work together. All right, look, I hope you've enjoyed the entire presentation. You've now learned how you can generate more leads, right? So you've learned how to generate more leads from Facebook. You've learned how to convert more leads, and now you've learned what to do with them once you've got the customer. And we've really been honored to bring you this and have enjoyed putting this all together, and we hope that you've really enjoyed watching. And thank you very much, and you have a great day.